Hey everybody, I am Alice Keeler and I'm excited to have you join me tonight for Back to Classroom. We are using the hashtag Back to Classroom on social media, so please share all your Google Classroom tips using the hashtag Back to Classroom. And what other types of products do you like to use that work really well with Google Classroom? Tonight I'm going to be presenting on Google Jamboard and how to add that jam into Google Classroom, of course. So I'm here with my sponsors are Adobe, Schoolitics, Screencastify, and Moat. These are all great tools that work really well with Google Classroom. If you have any questions, please feel free to add them into the chat. Okay. If you would join www.backtoclassroom.org, that's where you're going to see that we're sharing all kinds of great Google Classroom tips on how to use it more creatively and more efficiently, along with how to use Adobe, Schoolitics, Moat, Screencastify, and more to get even more out of Google Classroom. So please join the Facebook group, backtoclassroom.org. So tonight we're going to be talking about Google Jamboard, which is one of my favorite things. I am Alice Keeler. I am a high school math teacher. I taught this morning, and it was glorious because we did spreadsheets, and every day I create a Google Jamboard jam with my students because I want to give them some voice and some opportunity to ask questions and participate. So every day I create a blank Google Jamboard jam and I give them all access to the jam so they can just add sticky notes instead of having to raise their hand. Now, if anybody knows me, they know that I'm a huge fan of Joe Bowler, who says, please stop asking kids to raise their hand. It gives students the impression that we want a fast answer rather than a thoughtful one. And honestly, some students would rather die than raise their hand. For example, some of my kids, I have 5 of them. Not all of them have anxiety, but some of them feel very stressed and would not want to raise their hand under any circumstances. So using Google Jamboard is a great way to give students voice in the classroom. In addition to teaching math, I'm also a developer for Schoolitics. If you go to schoolitics.io, you can see all the great ways that you can get information about your Google Classroom class. I can get progress reports, missing assignments reports, and I'm particularly excited right now about the ability to add hashtags into my descriptions. So what I've been doing with my math students this week and this year so far, we're on week 3. So I'm putting hashtag week 3 in everything I put into Google Classroom. And last week's stuff, I put hashtag week 2. And obviously the first week of school, I did hashtag week 1. But I'm not stopping there. I'm also adding the hashtags for my DOK levels. I'm doing hashtag discussion, hashtag collaboration, hashtag participation. I'm hashtagging it up in the descriptions of my Google Classroom class because in Schoolitics.io, I'm able to break down how students are doing on each hashtag. So I can use it for a standards-based gradebook. I can use it to reduce the amount of grading that I have to do or the amount of reporting that I have to put into my gradebook because I can lump them all into a category. Super helpful. So those are some things that I do in addition to using Jam. I have a book on teaching with Google Jamboard. So if you want to learn even more about Jamboard, please go to alicekeeler.com/books. Go to alicekeeler.com/books if you'd like to grab a copy. So tonight we're going to focus on specifically is how to get a jam into Google Classroom. And to me, this is just a game changer. So the first thing to know is that jams are free. Jams are free. It doesn't cost you any money. You can do a jam by going to Google Drive. You can go to Google Drive and you can create a jam from there, or you can go to jamboard.google.com and you'll be able to create and see all of your jams, including the jams that you created for your students. They are free. Now, you do not need a Jamboard kiosk. Those are quite pricey and really not needed. You can use them no matter what devices you are using in your classroom. And jams work with Google Classroom because it is a Google file. So just like how you can add a Google Doc or add a Google Sheets or add a Google Slides, you can add a jam. Jams work with Google Classroom, so that's what we're going to take a look at. All your jams save to Google Drive. So that's really the key. Knowing that your jam is in Google Drive, what you're able to do then is go find your jam, create it in Drive, find it in Drive, But in Google Classroom, you're going to add it in the 100% exact same way that you would add a Google Docs, a Google Sheets, or a Google Slides. You would add a Google Jam file, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Now, I like to go to jam.new. There's actually multiple ways that you can create a jam. Like I already mentioned, you can create it right from Google Drive. Let's take a look at what that looks like. I'm going to go to drive.google.com. I'm going to click New. Wait for it to load. And under More, because the doc sheet, slides, forms, scroll down a little bit, Google Jamboard. That's it. It saves to Google Drive. It is a Drive file, and it's free. Free! I'm able to get that jam right here from Google Drive. And I'm going to call this number 008. This really is my best tip, is to number all of your assignments. So I'm going to have assignment number 8, and I have jam number 8. And the idea that I want here is I want to have students have a voice, and we are creative together, and I get to hear from more students. So this is my class jam. Most of the time, my jams are totally blank. I don't put anything special. I create a blank one every day because it really gives me a quick and easy place that I can put up a note, write something, students can contribute, and I can hear from everybody. And that is saved right back into Google Classroom. Makes it super quick and easy. But my favorite way, I can do it one way, is I go to New and I go to More, and you can find your jams in there. But I like to do just jam.new. Just go to jam.new and I have a new jam. Jam is a digital whiteboard. My favorite part about Jam is the sticky notes. That is this icon here in the middle. Put your name. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to click share. I'm going to change this to be anyone with the link. I'm going to copy this link, and I'm going to allow you to be an editor. So if anybody would like to jump in, you could be able to add to my jam. So that's in the same way that I would do a doc, sheets, or slides that I wanted to give anybody, strangers, access to my jam. You can do it right here, but you can also do it just in Google Classroom and do it a lot easier. So I'm going to do number 009, my jam I am sharing. All right, cool. Okay, and so I can use the pen tool. I can write on my jam. I like to use marker so I can share out on here a little bit thicker pen strokes. And you want to come up to the center, and you're going to see that is going to drop down the frame bar. Now in the frame bar, I can add additional frames or additional pages. So this is how I guide students through the lesson, where I'm like, add a sticky note, write something on there, share your ideas, and let's talk about it. So I get more conversations going in my classroom when I create a jam for students to use. So how am I going to put this jam into Google Classroom? So it's pretty simple. I'm just going to click on the classwork tab. I'm on the classwork tab in Google Classroom, and I'm going to click create. And under create, I'm going to create an assignment. Now it's important that you choose assignment, because I want to give students the ability to edit and contribute to my jam. So I'm going to click create. I'm going to choose assignment. And I like to match my numbers. So this is number 9. What do you think? Now remember, I created this jam from either Google Drive, or when I do jam.new, it also saves in Google Drive. Let's look for that number 9 that I just made. I'm going to come over here to recent in my Google Drive, and you'll see it's right here. I did jam.new, and it is in my Google Drive. Awesome. So back over here, all I have to do, so I want to click on that Google Drive icon. So I'm going to click on the Google Drive icon because I know all my jams are in Google Drive. So in the same way that I do Google Slides, the same way that I do Google Docs, I'm going to be able to add a jam. Now up here in the search bar at the very top, I'm going to click search and choose file type. I'm going to search and choose file type, and come down in the file type I'm going to use is jams. So now it's going to filter my Google Classroom for those jams that, just for jams that I want to add into here. So I'm looking for number 9. Here it is. This is my number 9 jam, and I'm going to add it. Now, by default, you can see that it says students can view files, so they can just look at it. Well, I want them to collaborate and contribute and share ideas. It is a collaborative whiteboarding tool, so that's how we're going to use it. So I'm going to click here where it says students can view file. And what I want to do is I want to change it to this middle option of students can edit file. Middle option, students can edit file. This gives them edit access. And then you can set up over here on the right-hand side your points, your due dates, your topics, and add a rubric if you want to, all of those lovely things. I'm going to go ahead and click Assign. By clicking Assign, what Google Classroom does is it automatically changes the sharing settings. Google Classroom automatically changes the sharing settings. So it takes it from being private to sharing it with just the students who are in my class. So it gives them access to be able to add those sticky notes and to add their ideas. So all they have to do is go find the assignment in Google Classroom. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. And right here is my Jam file, and I can click on it to link to it so that I can open it up and I can contribute with my students on this Jam. Okay, now I'm going to ask them, hey, would you add a sticky note? Save. Move this over here. And I love to see my students all adding those sticky notes in there. And we go to another frame and I ask a question and I ask for them to contribute their ideas. And it really fuels our discussion. Now, a few things to note about this Jam is I want to go to the three dots menu and choose C version history. And under C version history, I can write template if I want to. Template. So I can put it back. So if one of the students were to make a mistake, do something goofy on my Jam, like accidentally clear the frame, I can roll it back to the template, or I can roll it back to any one of these versions. So this one says, right here, this one's put your name. So I can go ahead and restore this version back to, whoops, didn't like that. Here we go. It restored it back to where I only had the sticky note of put your name before I drew on it. And I can go back to the three dots menu and see the version history, and I can restore it back to any of those versions. Restore. So it's pretty safe for you to share and allow students to have edit access. But at the end of my lesson, I want to be done. Like, I'm not going to come back to this conversation board most likely. So I don't want students to be contributing to it after the lesson, for most of them, many of them, some of them. So back here in Google Classroom, what I'm just going to do is I open the Jam, or I had it already open. I'm going to come up here to the share icon. And on the share icon, I'm looking for, there's going to be two groups that are created. When you add any document into Google Classroom, it shares it with the group of students and it shares it with the group of teachers. So I'm not looking for the one that says teachers, but rather the other one here, share the lesson. It says editor. I'm just going to switch them to viewers. And now they'll be able to still see all the notes and conversations that we had during the lesson, but now they can't add to it or erase it or change it. So now it is locked down where it's view only access. So when you're done using the Jam, go to the share icon, find the group that's for students, and change them from editors into viewers. So let's do this one more time. I'm going to do a new tab. I'm going to do jam.new. I'm going to name this number 010. I'm going to collaborate on this Jam. So back in Google Classroom, I'm going to click the create icon and I'm going to choose assignment. So we're going to create an assignment, number 010, share your ideas. I click on the Google Drive icon. Here we go. Here is my number 10 because I just made it. It's going to show up under recent. If I could not find it easily, just go to file type and choose Jams so you can get that Jam that you wanted to add in. And don't forget to change it from students can view file to students can edit file. So we have a question here. Should you change the anyone with a link to view in the Jam sharing privileges. I don't usually, so Matt, normally when I'm teaching, I don't have mostly don't have a reason to share with anyone. I know specifically who I want to share with, and I want to share with my students. So I usually leave it private. I usually leave my Jam private, and then I just add it into Google Classroom, and that's going to give just my students access. So notice on this number 10, I didn't change the sharing permissions manually because I normally don't. So I'll do this twice. I change it in Google Classroom that students can collaborate, that middle option, and then I click assign. So let me do another one. I'm going to do jam.new. I'm going to name this one number 11. I'm not going to click the share icon. I'm going to leave it private. I'm going to leave it there. And I'm going to come back. I'm going to create an assignment. Number 011. And I'm going to click on the drive icon. Here's my number 11. And I switch that into edit, right? So now the students have edit access. I'm going to open that number 11 file. Now look at the icon up in the top. There's no link icon on there. There is no link icon on there because it's shared explicitly with my students. So let's take a look. I'm going to click on the share icon. And you can see here it's got for the teachers and it has the group of students. So that group of students has edit access. I'm going to change the group of students from editors to viewers when I'm done with the lesson. Awesome. Okay. I did make number 9 editable for anyone the link just because I was showing what a pain it is to have to remember to do that and emphasizing that I can skip that step when I do it in Google Classroom because it does it for me. So I apologize for the confusion, Matt. Thanks for asking that question. And if anybody else has any questions, please feel free to put them down into the comments. Otherwise, we are continuing this conversation at backtoclassroom.org. This is a Facebook group, and I would love for you to join us there, where if you have further questions about how to use Jamboard with Google Classroom or any other things that you're wondering, please go ahead and ask those questions at the Facebook group, backtoclassroom.org. And if you have any tips about Jamboard, about Google Classroom, or any products that work great with Google Classroom, please share your tips back in the Facebook group. And if you're using social media, please remember to use the hashtag #BackToClassroom so we can all learn from each other. So thank you, everybody. I hope you have a great evening. And thanks for joining me for Back to Classroom at a Jam. So I'm just hanging around for a minute to see if there's any other questions. Thank you. I'm done with my presentation, but I just want to give anybody, oh, you're welcome. Hey, Lisa, thanks for joining. If you want a little shout out, go ahead and drop me a comment. All right, thank you, everyone. And I hope you love using Google Jamboard and integrating it back to Classroom. Google Classroom is a great tool to help you to interact more with your students, and you don't get better interaction than using Jam. So have a great night and use more Google Jamboard.